Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 12th annual public meeting of
Buenos días a todos y bienvenidos a la reunión pública anual del IDRC.
À la 12e Assemblée publique annuelle du Centre de recherche pour le développement international du Canada. Je m'appelle Margaret Biggs et je
Mi
suis
nombre es Margaret Biggs y yo soy
du centre. J'ai le plaisir de déclarer
la presidenta de la Junta de Gobernadores del CIDI. Es para mí un placer
Excusez-moi.
declarar el inicio de esta sesión.
I'd like to start this meeting by recognizing the unique nature of this year's annual public meeting. The public meeting is typically an in-house, in-person event held here in Ottawa, but the pandemic has moved this year's meeting to a virtual environment, as it has in so many other cases and for so many other events. This virtual format, though, provides us with an opportunity to have a public meeting that's open to so many more people around the world. And it mates very well with the global audience, the global nature of IDRC's work. So thank you all for joining us today. First, some housekeeping measures and some housekeeping items. This meeting will be conducted in both of Canada's official languages, English and French. Interpretation is available based on the official language you selected upon entering the event. Cette assemblée se déroulera dans les deux langues officielles du Canada.
The meeting will be conducted in both of Canada's official languages, English and French. Interpretation is available based on the official language you selected upon entering the event.
By clicking the language button on the screen. Later, there will be a Q&A session, and to submit a question or comment, simply click on the Ask the Question button on the navigation bar of the webcast player. The icon looks like a person raising their hand. This will open a new window on your screen, and just follow the instructions and type your question. Should you experience any technical difficulties, click on the Help button where you can describe your issue and you will receive immediate assistance via email. So we have an engaging hour ahead of us, including the awarding of the Hopper Prize and a panel discussion with the two recipients who will tell us more about their work and its impact on generating positive change. So needless to say, this has been an eventful year for everybody. This year marked IDRC's 50th anniversary. The center has been working on an ambitious 10-year strategy to take it to 2030. And of course, COVID-19 and the economic shock hit in Canada and around the world, forcing IDRC to adjust its operations and shift its research priorities. When IDRC was established 50 years ago, with the unanimous support of all parties in the Parliament of Canada, it was a bold experiment for Canada and a radical investment in the idea that global development matters to Canada, that the capacity for science and innovation in the developing world itself is key to sustainable development. And this past year has shown us all the relevance and salience of this mission. It has shown us how interconnected we are as a global community, how much we need new knowledge, innovation, and solutions, how important it is to ensure that no one is left behind, and how IDRC can make a demonstrable difference and contribution to addressing global challenges. More than ever, the world needs the kind of research and innovation that IDRC has fostered for 50 years. Plus que jamais, le monde a besoin de types de recherche et d'innovation que le CRDA soutient depuis 50 ans. Permettez-moi maintenant de passer la parole au
Please allow me now to give the floor to the President, CEO of the IDRC, Jean Lebel. He will talk about the work of IDRC throughout this very difficult year. Jean, over to you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Margaret. Good day, everyone. Bonjour à tous et toutes. C'est un plaisir. It is a pleasure to be with you.
It is a pleasure to be with you.
Which has gone virtual this year, as everyone noticed. This past year was already going to be a significant one, with the preparation underway for IDRC new strategy to guide the organization through 2030. The pandemic forced us to go back at the drawing table at the beginning of the year and to adjust it to a world that was changing in front of our eyes in real time. The result is an even more robust strategy. Under this strategy, IDRC will invest in high-quality research and innovation in developing countries, as we have always done. We will share knowledge for greater uptake and use, and we will also mobilize alliances for impact. This will be done through 5 programs, one on global health, one on climate resilient food systems, one on democratic and inclusive governance, one on education and science, and one on sustainable inclusive economies. La programmation dans le cadre de la stratégie 2030 aidera.
Our programming in the context of 2030 strategy will fill the main gaps in terms of sustainable development objectives, SDGs. It will allow us to rise to the double challenge of climate change and inequality. It will also allow us to manage the impact of huge shocks such as the COVID-19 pandemic and its long-term implications. This new strategy will be launched at the beginning of the new year.
In order to do this work, there's many words of thanks to bring to your attention. The first one would be for the staff of IDRC. A strategy is nothing without the organization behind it. Today, I recognize all IDRC employees who have shown the exceptional resilience, innovation, and adaptability of our center in this demanding year. Thank you, everyone. My second round of thanks goes to the Board of Governors. IDRC's Board of Governors has served as a guiding light to see us through a demanding year. And I want to thank personally Margaret for her chairship that she has executed brilliantly, as well as all governors and all committees of the board. Thank you very much on behalf of all the organization. And lastly, and not the least, it's to IDRC grantees that my thanks goes this year. Throughout the year, our recipients of funding have worked with our personnel every step of the way in order to help continue the research that was ongoing, to adjust it to the situation of the pandemic, and to pursue the work that needs to be done in developing region of the world. As usual, we have continued to provide support to build the platform, and our recipient have delivered the keynotes to the scientific world, the policy world, and numbers of other stakeholders. Thank you a million to all of you, IDRC recipient of funding. Le mot-clé cette année est certainement COVID-19, mais derrière le
Keyword this year is surely COVID-19, and the keyword in IDRC and in the world, and there's one that resonates specifically, is collaboration. Collaboration with research partners, with researchers, with decision-making bodies, with stakeholders, with political decision makers to produce a research response that would be innovative and yet flexible in the face of the pandemic. Overall, we invested more than $50 million to support research connected to COVID-19. Let me give you a few examples of this flexibility. First of all, a quick response to COVID-19, to the pandemic. The quick response of Canada was deployed extremely quickly for COVID-19, and we worked together with the Institutes of Research of Canada and other Canadian organizations to support that rapid response of the Canadian government to fund research on COVID-19. The contribution of IDRC supports that international cooperation between researchers here in Canada and research teams based in developing regions. That support allows for quick responses to the pandemic in the area of health, in the form of social policies, public health policies, therapeutic measures, diagnoses, clinical management, and interventions on health systems.
We also launched an initiative to develop research, evidence, and data for solutions to mitigate the social and economic impacts of COVID-19 and to promote a sustainable pandemic recovery. This initiative is supporting currently 21 projects, research projects, across 42 countries. that is helping answer crucial questions such as how to protect informal workers, which stimulus packages help countries build back more inclusive and greener economies, which interventions ensure the safety of refugees during and after the pandemic. On stimulus package, let me get a little bit further, because one of our research partners, the Overseas Development Institute, ODI, documented the disparity between economic stimulus packages in G20 countries and Sub-Saharan Africa countries. Their research found that G20 countries spend of about $3,900 US per person on COVID-19 response packages, compared to about $52 USD per person in Sub-Saharan Africa. ODI researchers are working with partners in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Kenya, Tanzania, and Peru to generate credible data, analysis, and policy options to help government make the best use of limited resources and use a full range of policy instruments available to them to strengthen pandemic responses. Le dernier exemple est le Fonds de recherche d'intervention.
The last example is the Quick Intervention Research Fund against COVID-19 in Africa. There again, we worked together with the National Research Foundation of South Africa and other partners to allow African research councils, funding councils, to support emergency research with African researchers. So more than 80 research projects in connection with COVID are being led in 17 African countries. This initiative responds to a fundamental research need on COVID that needs to be carried out in Africa by African researchers so that we may find solutions to the pandemic that are adapted to the local context. Strengthening these initiatives and other initiatives around COVID are an engagement, a commitment in all of our programs, so that we may continue the important work done by grantees throughout the world, and to amplify the impact, taking into account the COVID-19 context. We've achieved that experience over the years at IDRC, and especially we've achieved a great degree of experience through the Ebola crisis in Africa from 2012 to 2019. And no later than yesterday did I facilitate a panel with 5 African researchers who are directly involved in research on COVID-19, and the conversation allowed us to highlight all of the challenges, all of the difficulties, but also all of the successes that these research teams have had on the African continent. So this initiative is the one that I meant, and those that I mentioned allow those countries and researchers to bring their voices to the scientific table to resolve this pandemic.
That science makes a vital difference in lives worldwide. It disrupts entrenched challenges and opens the way for change where it's needed most. In Strategy 2030, we set ourselves an ambitious agenda, but this ambition is necessary and position IDRC to make a crucial contribution towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Margaret, I'm passing back the microphone to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Merci, Jean. As Jean has indicated, this past year brought with it many unexpected developments, most especially, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. IDRC's Board of Governors, senior management, employees demonstrated, as he said, tremendous commitment, resilience, and adaptability throughout the year, and were able to produce a rapid and innovative response to COVID-19. So thank you all. On behalf of the Board of Governors, thank you all for your dedication and commitment. At the same time, work has continued on, as Jean said, an ambitious forward plan, which will be launched early in the new year. And Strategy 2030 builds on IDRC's proud 50-year legacy and commits the center to focus on where development needs and knowledge gaps are the greatest, and where IDRC's investments in research, partnerships, knowledge mobilization can make the greatest difference. Before I turn it back to Jean Lebel, I'd just like to recognize my fellow governors on the Board of Governors, many of whom are with us today virtually from many countries around the world. The Center benefits so much from your dedication and wise counsel. Thank you very much for your extraordinary support throughout this year. With that, I'd like to turn it back again to Jean to introduce the David Hopper Prize. Thank you.
Merci. Thank you again, Margaret. I am quite pleased to present those Hopper Prize. Au cours de ces 50 années d'existence,
during its 50 years of existence, IDRC contributed in rising to world challenges such as filling the digital crisis, responding to several crises, supporting democratic institutions, and taking part in fights such as the fight against the Ebola crisis in 2014. To highlight this heritage, IDRC created the Hopper Awards for a leadership on research in the memory of the first president of IDRC, Mr. David Hopper, that I was fortunate enough to meet in my career during a discussion in my office that was extremely interesting. He was highly committed, even when he retired and at an advanced age, with the work of IDRC. This award aims to congratulate two researchers for which the support of IDRC was fundamental for their career, and whose sustained leadership has had a very important social impact in a context of international development. Each award has a value of $50,000 Canadian to be used to fund research, mentoring activities, or knowledge mobilization.
Among the candidates were many exceptional researchers and leaders with impressive legacies of impact generated with the help of IDRC support. And before I introduce to them those winners, I really want to pay a tribute to our International Selection Committee. Members of the committee were constituted by Anne Gaboury, administratrice au conseil d'administration pour FinDev Canada,
director at FinDev Canada, leader of experience and client experience at Service Desjardins Corporation, and former CEO at Desjardins International Development.
Executive Vice President at Canada's Social Science and Humanity Research Council, and a former colleague at IDRC. We also had Mr. Claude Charon, ancien gouverneur du CRDI,
former governor of IDRC, former director of the International Research Study in Montreal at the University of Quebec in Montreal, and former Delegate General in Tokyo for Canada.
Of the Mennonite Economic Development Association, and also the IDRC colleagues who took part in the preparation of the work for the selection committee. And I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart for the dedication, the seriousness, and the effort that they have put into this selection of a highly distinguished set of nominees. Merci beaucoup à tous et à toutes pour vos efforts de la part de nous tous au CRDI. We will announce the recipient.
On behalf of IDRC, thank you to all of you.
A short video about the prize and the legacy of IDRC first president, Mr. David Hopper. So can we have the video, please?
30 seconds left in the video. One minute left in the video. Seconds. Coming back in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thank you very much, and it's now my distinguished honor to announce the recipients of the David Hopper Prizes for Leadership in Research for Development after this fantastic video of our first president, certainly an inspiration for all of us that follow his path. The first recipient of the David Hopper Prize is Dr. Teresa Mosquera Vasquez, and we have a few slides of Teresa. Teresa is a professor in the Faculty of Agricultural Science at the Universidad Nacional de Colombia. Her research is focused on food security, agriculture, nutrition, and improving livelihoods, with a strong emphasis on the integration of social and natural sciences and women's empowerment. Under Teresa's leadership, researchers use scientific and traditional knowledge to develop new potatoes varieties that are more nutritious, productive, and disease-resistant. Teresa's team then work with public and private partners to scale up the production and consumption of the potatoes across Colombia. Producer earning increased by 18%, and over 6.5 million Colombians gained access to more nutritious potato. This innovation was used as an entry point to develop a comprehensive approach to improve the nutritional status of rural and urban population in two regions of Colombia that are among the most food insecure regions in the country. What difference has this made? Well, it also made a difference among participating families. The number of households considered food insecure dropped from 81% to 41%, and the proportion of households with adequate diet diversity increased from 17% to 52%. Now, that is turning research into life-changing societal impact. The selection committee noted Teresa's work using traditional knowledge to significantly improve food security for a vulnerable population, as well as her commitment to mentorship. Teresa Mosquera Vasquez. Congratulaciones, felicitaciones. I will now invite Teresa to say a few words from Bogota in Colombia. For our audience, please note that there may be a slight delay due to the live translation from Spanish to both French and English. And for those who would prefer to listen to Teresa in Spanish, you simply have to maintain your connection as it is. Teresa, un placer, felicitaciones.
Buenas tardes, Margaret, Jan, Julie, y Rachid.
Good afternoon, Margaret, Julie, Rashid. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my gratitude for this award. I would like to thank IDRC for their trust in our work, and especially to Renat and Delphine, who were with us in this very challenging work, to the team of McGill University, to their leaders and their professors, Kush and Hugo, with whom we created a wonderful team, to colleagues and students at the university. Thank you to the communities who opened their hearts and their homes. You will always be on my mind. To Christiane and a Max Planck Institute and a Jim in the Bonn University, both in Germany. Thank you for your support. To Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, to the James Hutton Institute in Colombia. I would like to thank the Health and Agriculture Ministries, to Nariño Municipality and the Fondo Nacional de la Papa. Thank you to my second home, the Universidad Nacional de Colombia, for supporting my initiatives and for allowing me to be happy with what I do. Thank you to my children, Melissa and Pablo, to my sister, Meches, and to my family for their love and support day by day, and to all my friends for their love. Thank you very much.
Teresa is very humble. She is someone I met in the field with the Governor General of Canada a few years ago. And again, congratulations. Et maintenant, c'est mon insigne honneur également.
And now I'm also very honored to introduce the second recipient, Dr. Rachid Dekou, from the University Kidi Ayad, Marrakesh, Morocco. We have a few photos of his work in the field. He's a surgeon at the University Kidi Ayad of Marrakesh in Morocco, as I was saying. He's a pioneer in research of management of mining waste in Morocco, and is one of the 10 world leaders in his field. From 2009 to 2016, he held the IDRC research chair in stabilization of industrial and mining waste. Morocco has a long mining history that has left behind it more than 200 closed mines that pose environmental and health risks for local population. To solve this problem, Rachid and his colleague at the University of Quebec in Abitibi-Témiscamingue have mapped the first map indicating where these mines are located. They have developed targeted techniques to contain the drainage of acid rains. The result, the very first confined abandoned mining site in North Africa and West Africa. The selection committee was particularly impressed by Rachid's work that mobilizes the private sector for the benefit of local communities and environment. Just as Teresa, we have recognized their involvement. Thank you very much, Rachid, and now I would invite you to say a few words.
Mesdames, Messieurs, permettez-moi de vous dire à quel point je suis très honoré de recevoir ce prix, David Hopper 2020. À ce sujet, je souhaite exprimer ma profonde reconnaissance au CIRDI et remercier vivement le comité de sélection qui m'a décerné cette reconnaissance. Mes remerciements sont également adressés à Monsieur le Président de l'Université Kidi Ayad et à Monsieur le Doyen de la Faculté des Sciences techniques de Marrakech, ainsi que le directeur de mon laboratoire IMEDLab, Monsieur Ismaël Sadoun, à qui j'adresse toute ma considération. Cette reconnaissance, je la dois à tous mes collègues et à tous les partenaires qui ont cru en mon travail de recherche dans le domaine de l'environnement minier. Merci aux étudiants qui sont les acteurs clés de nos travaux de recherche.
Thank you to the actors in the research. Thank you also to my colleagues at the University of Quebec, Abitibi-Témiscamingue, especially my friend Mustafa Benzazoua. I'd like to thank also the OCP Foundation. Thank you to my family. I hope I forgot no one. I would like to quote Saint-Exupéry in his work, Man in His World, says, the earth teaches us a lot about ourselves, more than books, because it resists to us. Man discovers himself when he measures himself to this obstacle. Thank you, Rachid, and thank you, Olivier Lessard. I'd like to give you my feelings of friendship and thank you for your incredible contribution to society. It was an honor. It will be an honor in the future to follow you.
And that nominated you. I want to thank the Universidad Nacional de Colombia for Teresa and Université Kadi Ayad for Rachid Akou. Merci à ces organisations et à leur leadership.
Thank you for these organizations and this leadership. It's a special year. It's a year of pandemic. It's a year when we do things differently with video conferences.
IDRC, innovated quite drastically. Over the year, we had many, staffing action that takes place. But I think it was the first time that we staffed a position of a vice president for our strategy, region, and policy through virtual means. From the selection, the interview, the second interview, the onboarding with IDRC, and since the end of August, performance that brings her at the forefront today. I want to introduce to you our new Vice President, Strategy, Region, and Policy, Madame Julie Scholdeis, that came to us from a previous posting as Ambassador of Canada to Côte d'Ivoire. Julie will today moderate the discussion with the upper prize recipients, and I'm just passing now the baton and the microphone to you, Julie. Welcome to IDRC and to your first annual public meeting. And the floor is yours with Teresa and Rachid. Merci, au revoir.
Thanks so much, Jean. It's such a pleasure to be here and to have the chance to participate this year in the annual public meeting, although it's a bit of a shame we can't all be in the same place, but I'm glad we're still able to connect. Rachid, Teresa, congratulations to you both. I'd like to join Jean's comments in my congratulations for the accomplishments, but also for the recognition that you've received and the contribution that you've made. Jusqu'ici, dans la discussion, Jean nous a fourni des informations.
To now, in the discussion, Jean gave us information about your impressive realizations. Now I'd like to take a few minutes to know you better.
To this point, and I'm sure our audience would be very interested in hearing about them. So to start off, as you both hold leadership roles in your respective universities, I'd like to ask you about your experience in mentoring young researchers. This is such an important part of how we think about the future and how we bring the next generation forward. So if I can start with Teresa. Teresa, can you talk to us about your experience in mentorship and working with some of the young people in your university, and perhaps an example of a time that you've been able to mentor a young person?
Bueno, gracias, Julie, por tu pregunta.
Thank you, Julie, for your question. Well, I begin with the fact that I consider science research as a transforming tool for society, the methodology, their objectives, and I also consider researchers. And these requires to work shoulder by shoulder with the researchers, young researchers at a national and international level to become a team, to understand what other people have to say, to be very disciplined, because that way they can recognize the work of others and recognize what others can give. I also think that as a mentor, we have to be very good at teaching and to recognize what we don't know, to give a human sense to science, to show researchers that we also have frustrations and how we can overcome these frustrations, to motivate them, for them to reach their goals, their dreams, to try and work in a more equitable world. In my experience, I've seen the change of young people that have been able to achieve more than what they thought at the beginning. And these not only change them, but also change their families and their social environment. And as important as the scientific knowledge is education, solidarity, building a new world, and the genuine respect of others. Science is very competitive and we have to strongly compete, but we also have to have high standards for quality, for honesty. We need to understand that we not always be the first one or the best one, but when we are, we must be very humble and try to stimulate others. In Colombia, our scientists have to face the transformation of their life and to transform territories for peace, because we have to try to have a Colombia that is more peaceful and more solidarity, with more
Thank you so much,
solidarity.
Teresa. That was just wonderful. And it's wonderful to hear your experience as we go forward. Je vais maintenant me retourner vers Rachid.
Now I'll turn to Rachid and I'll ask him the same question. Could you give us an overview of your experience mentoring young searchers in your university?
Oui, donc, concernant donc la thématique de développement,
Concerning development within our research team here in Morocco, I could say that in a general way, there's a young researcher often quit for financial reasons. That's why all the young students in our group have scholarships that we raise in different ways, and the well-being of the student, of course, is first and foremost. We insist always on the integration, socialization of young searchers, and especially we insist on working together, respecting ethics. It's very important in research. And as supervisors, in a general way, we're always accessible, available for our students. So basically, that's our recipe for mentoring of our young searchers. Thank you, Rachid. These ideas of integration and availability are very important. We're currently working with young searchers coming to our institutions in order to ease their apprenticeship. Now, I'd like to talk about cooperation, collaboration beyond the university field. I know a large part of your work, in both cases, you've increased the impact of your research with cooperation with the private sector. So Rachid, could you talk to us about the importance of cooperation with cooperators outside academia? You've done a lot of research in your field, for instance, as we know. Yes, indeed. When we're working in the field of environment, one of the most important things is to find solutions, not talk only about problems. The challenge is to find solutions. That's what we base our work on. So that's how we got the confidence, the trust of large mining companies in Morocco, the largest phosphate company, and local companies as well. So we also, they believed in our work, in our solutions, and they support our research to assist us. Locally, also, it's very important. It's important regionally around Marrakesh. And local populations, we try to integrate them in our work. One of the most important output as well is our involvement in the development of the national plan. And that plan was initiated by the department, and discussions with mining companies and the environment component as well.
Thank you so much, Rashid. Some really key reflections on how we do some of this work together, and the important work, in collaborating from academia to other places. And I now turn to Teresa, and wondering, Teresa, if you could speak perhaps about the work that you've done outside of academia with community actors in Colombia.
Yeah, gracias, Julie.
Yes, thank you, Julie. Well, in 2012, we worked with potato farmers. They wanted to research with us to try to improve their income, and they wanted to improve their earnings, improving the potato crops. And we thought it was a very good idea because potato is an ancestral food in our country. And it was also important to invest their earnings in the betterment of the lifestyle of their families. But we wanted also to improve the nutritional value of potatoes for their families and the families of other people in Colombia to benefit from this new food. So we were also trying to face some challenges of food insecurity in Colombia. So if we were able to mix this two, we were going to be able to improve the food security in Colombia. So we used two criteria. The criteria about programs, and we developed a three variety of potatoes with more nutritional value. The more nutritious potatoes that we did with the support of the McGill University. These varieties of potato have higher content of zinc, and the evaluation of iron was done with children of less than 5 years old. And in a second project with IDRC, we also were able to get more consumption of this type of nutritious potatoes in these communities in Colombia. And the result was very wonderful because we we're trying to reach 1.5 million consumers, but the IDRC asked us to go beyond, and we then improve the scale, and we were able to go to more than 1.65 million. And we were able also to solve something in the agriculture in Colombia, that is to have a better seed. So we were able, through a program, to organize 7 programs in Colombia with farmers. We worked in education, in the political level, working at a local and national levels of government, and we were able to show the agriculture ministry that we were able to improve the process with a better seed. We created partnerships with several universities, with the McGill University, with policymakers at a at different levels. We also worked in gender equality, preservation of the environment. We were able to achieve these with a truthful dialogue with all people that were participating in our programs, and also with the leadership of IDRC.
Thanks so much, Teresa. It's wonderful to hear about how the work that you're doing is having benefits in communities, and about the exchange with the communities, and how that has brought forward real results in terms of nutritional outcomes and others. Perhaps just a last question, a few last thoughts before we close this session. One of the things that we're talking a lot about right now, particularly in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, is about the role of research in society. And Teresa's talked a bit about this already, but I'd be interested just in a few final thoughts from each of you on the implications of your research, and how in your respective countries you've been able to connect research to policymakers, and link to this how you bring forward your research to have an impact on society. Teresa, any final thoughts in that area?
No se escucha. No escuchamos a Teresa. Well, for the development, we know that knowledge is fundamental and is basic for the development of peoples, for improving the living conditions. So in this sense, to invest in science is an essential factor for life per se. But unfortunately, you see sometimes that these are not priorities. For example, in countries like Colombia, and I think that the same happens in Rashid's country, this is not easy and there are not sustainable resources. But I believe it is important on this sense for researchers and for young scientists to be able to have these dialogue with policymakers, for them to consider our results, and from those results to be able to create law and government plans. How were we able to achieve this? We involved ourselves in these territory plans. We saw what different policymakers were offering, and we said, oh, here we can help. So this is what we can do. And they were accepting our projects, and we were promoting their ideas at the same time. So this is a kind of mechanism that we can use. Scientists have to approach these policymakers that are at the medium level of policymaking, and we also have to involve our students, our young scientists.
Thank you so much, Teresa. What wonderful ideas to conclude on your side in terms of some very practical things we can do. Rashid, I offer you the final word in terms of some of your ideas from your context in Morocco.
Yes. Pardon, excusez-moi. Oui, donc
apologies. Yes. So under COVID, we learned that Morocco can only count on its own abilities to face this kind of crisis, a crisis such as COVID. So this period did disable us somewhat, especially for work at the grassroots, and for some of the work in our laboratories, it was a handicap. But nonetheless, we remained in touch with our partners, industries, local partners, remotely, of course, virtually. So there are virtual contacts on a regular basis that will be used. I hope that soon we will reach the end of this tunnel with this pandemic. And I hope that in the next 2 or 3 months, the pandemic will disappear, to a large extent at least. and then perhaps we will come back to normal, as we say.
Thank you so much. I think that's a hope that we all share. And perhaps next year's annual public meeting will be in person. We'll have to wait and see. But thank you both for sharing your reflections. We've covered a lot of ground talking about the next generation of researchers, the impact of your research in real world contexts, and mechanisms that we're sharing that research and knowledge within countries and across spaces. So thank you both. Congratulations again. And I pass the floor now back to Margaret for the Q&A portion.
Thank you, Julie, and congratulations again to Teresa and Rashid. And thank you for the fascinating discussion today and for sharing your insights with us. I think for all of us, your achievements, your leadership, your commitment to training the next generation of researchers is really an inspiration for all of us and a testament very much to IDRC's mission and its legacy. So now turning to all of you who are watching from around the world, it's your turn if you have any questions or comments. Jean et moi sommes là pour répondre à toutes vos questions sur le CRDI.
Jean and I are here to answer all your questions on IDRC.
You can send in your questions and comments into the question bar, as we noted before, at the bottom of your screen, the raise hand function. You can also, we're happy to answer any questions you have in French or in English. Nous serons heureux de répondre à vos questions en anglais ou en français.
We'll be happy to answer your questions in French or English. Translation is available.
Patricia Corrigan's going to forward them on to us. Patricia, any questions there that you'd like us to address first?
Thank you, Margaret. Nothing has come through on our Q&A poll yet, but we did have one question submitted in advance, which I'll pose now.
Okay.
How do you see the pandemic changing the way research is carried out? Will the changes be permanent?
Excellent question. I'm going to pass this on to Jean Lebel, our president, because he's thought about this a great deal, both in terms of some of the changes that have happened this year, but also what we can take from that in terms of how we go forward. Jean, over to you.
Thank you very much, Margaret. And I want to mention that we have over 260 participants on this web broadcast of our annual public meeting, and I really want to thank everyone. Is this changing the way we will be doing business? It has changed already the way we are doing business. I don't have a crystal ball, but I'll give you a few pointers that with the management team and my colleague at IDRC, as well as outside stakeholder we're discussing. First, on the travel, this has been a mainstay in our history to be present in the field with the people that are carrying the work. We haven't been able to travel in the last 9 months. Still, the work is continuing. I hope that we will resume travel because there's value in the face-to-face interaction. But by necessity, we have seen also other opportunities to use other technological tools and other ways of working. I think that some of this will stay with us for the long term. The second thing I think is that everyone, our recipient, ourselves, have seen with the pandemics and the numbers of measured presence, whether they are, social distanciation, preventive measure, lockdown in some instances, closing of border, and access to the field in many instances, that we are quite resilient. But the textbook on how to perform in difficult shock situation like a pandemic is being written in front of our eyes by a community worldwide. And my hope is that this learning that we're gathering all together will come further through a coalition of people that help each other and learn from each other on how to pursue this mandate of helping to develop the capacity of research worldwide, globally, and securing that the people that are at the forefront of the pandemics and other situations like climate change or raising inequalities bring their voice into the forums be it at the national or international level. Thirdly, I would say that at the high level, the pandemic has taught us that the relationship between nature and humans is a fragile one, and that we will have to consider how we are getting into greater harmony, pursuing our work, securing that we are sustainable, inclusive, and that there is prosperity in this world where everyone deserves an equal chance, wherever they are located and whatever is their status. Those are my words of thinking on the pandemics. Thank you, Margaret.
Thanks so much, Jean. Thank you very much. As we're sort of collecting our thoughts as we go along over this year, and you've shown tremendous leadership and adaptability, and all these insights are being woven in real time into the new strategy 2030. Patricia, any other comments or questions coming in?
Yes, we've received one question, Margaret. This question comes from Paul Stinson in Victoria, BC. Paul asks, there was a suggestion that IDRC would publish some articles about the most significant research results generated by IDRC in its first 50 years. Is this still coming?
Good question, and hello to Victoria, British Columbia. Again, I'm going to put this one to Jean. Jean, what's the answer?
Thank you, Paul, for this question that you brought to me some times ago. I think Paul at one point served on IDRC. Listen, you know, the pandemic has changed numbers of things and has put a little bit of a delay on this recollection of article. Still, it's in the plan at one point to come with it. But the reality is also that there's a vast documentation. And in our core objective for the future, as mentioned, we have to continue the research, we have to mobilize alliance, but there is one about sharing knowledge and amplifying our contribution to the world of science through the analysis, the understanding, the learning. Share this with the scientific community, with the policy community in Canada or abroad, as well as an international forum. And through this, I hope in the near future, we will be able to point maybe not to the compendium of everything that has been influential, but the few key elements when a topic or thematic arrives that we can capture and use as part of contribution of the past, but also the legacy for the future. And on that, an anecdote, a few years ago, the World Food Prize was awarded to an Israeli researcher that works on micro-drip irrigation. One of his first international grants was made in 1971 by David Hopper as a grant to come to Canada, study, and return back to his home and put together what has been a revolution, micro-drip irrigation. When he visited IDRC, I welcome him. He gave a public talk, and as a sign of recognition, what did we find? The original report that was digitalized, and then we gave him back. So it's an anecdote, but I think that we can certainly count on the successes of the past to inform the future. Thank you very much, Paul, for your question.
Thanks very much, Jean. Interesting anecdote and an example of how these investments in research and innovation can pay dividends many, many years later. Sometimes it takes a while for them to gestate, shall we say. Patricia, any other questions coming in?
We have not received any additional questions, Margaret.
Okay, then. Well, I think then that we're at the 1 hour mark, and I think we will bring the meeting to a close. Marks the end of our time together. Thank you for being there, for people around the world, for tuning in and for showing an interest in what IDRC does and hearing about what the organization's been doing this year. Again, congratulations, félicitations to our winners of the David Hopper Prize, and thank you for joining us. Je vous remercie tous de vos êtres.
I would like to thank all of you for joining us for this first annual public meeting delivered virtually. Thank you very much.
Goodbye. Thanks, Margaret.
Muchas gracias.